Oh, hello, traveler. It is I, Abermellum the Wise again, here at the Prancing Pony with my good friend J5 the Grey, a wizard friend of mine, and we are here today
Hello.
to discuss more upon the topic of our scholarly papers and our close readings of our various books. Mine, of course, being Homeland by R.A. Salvatore, and how it ties in with D&D and inherent racism that is found within both cultures, because each one are tied with the other. But first, we're going to start with an activity. J5, the Gray here, will hold this up closer so that it can be seen and read up here. We are going to do an activity where we are going to create a fantasy character. And the purpose of this is to kind of get you to understand about what I mean by inherent racism and just in the creation of these characters and race of these characters alone. And so let's start off first with classes. So these are the jobs that your character will play. We have 5 of them. You can be a rogue. And do you want to explain a little bit what a rogue is?
Well, those wily fellows, rogues are quick of hand and light of pocket.
That's right. The thieves, the vagabonds, the ones who skulk in the shadows. Very dexterous people. Then, of course, like ourselves, wizard.
Little shazamazam.
Yes, ones who are gifted with controlling the very fundamental fabric of reality and understanding the secrets of the divine. Those of us like ourselves who are gifted in such ways. Then, of course, you have your basic fighter, warriors and knights, etc. Cling clang, sword, tang tang. And then you got your cleric. These ones think they can...
Holier than thou.
The priests who call upon their divine gods to...
Light of Theron.
and so forth to change reality. And then we have druids. These are just natural, magical people who live off the land and do a lot of nature-based magic.
No, that's why in Silvertown they no longer allow mousetraps.
That's right. That is right. We had an accident a while back, and we lost a dear friend.
Ah, good Ringtail.
Good old Ringtail. But now I want you to stop and think for a minute and choose between these classes: rogue, wizard, fighter, cleric, and druid. Go ahead and pause it for a moment. Good. Now that you have your class selected, let's go ahead and choose a race. We have elves, which, the long-eared, long-lived, pointy-eared people.
Self-proud.
Very dexterous people.
Indeed. Can hit a dime from 100 yards with a bow.
Are of a magical nature. Then you have, of course, the dwarves. Very stout.
Very stubborn, like the rocks that they dig through.
And very good fighters.
Oh, indeed.
And heavy drinkers. I think there's
I'll
a
drink to
problem.
that.
I think that they are all alcoholics. I don't know the story behind that, but that's a thing. Now, we also have the Drow.
Not to be always trusted, but perhaps with the truest of hearts, one could learn to build it.
Yes, it's another form of elf. Now, they're dark-skinned and usually considered more evil. They lurk in the Underdark, etc. Then, of course, you got your halfling or hobbit, depending on where you are from. The shorter, the dexterous, easily to be hidden.
Light of foot, and they have an affinity for rings.
Exactly. And then, of course, you got your gnomes. The last of the little people. These ones like to hide in the shadows. Not so much hide in the shadows, I am sorry. They are very illusionists. They're tricksy people. And they also have an affinity towards lapidary and jewels and gems and tinkering of things.
Things that are hidden from the mortal eye.
Yes. So those are your races. Considering those and looking at their racial specializations and what they're good at, we're going to then pick one that you think would go well with your class. Now, I'm going to wait a minute and let me know when you're done. Oh, you are? Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Well, now we're going to talk about why that is inherently terrible, because we are now lumping people's inherent abilities, their culture, and everything underneath the umbrella term race. So, even down to their moralities, like we did with the Drow.
Indeed.
So, that is very, very problematic. We had just created someone, a job for someone purely based upon their race because of the benefits that race gives to that job. For instance, the elf would give you benefits of being a wizard.
Or being a they're not so good though for being a cleric. Elves are not primarily worshippers, if you will. They're more workers in the way that they will dedicate decades, if not hundreds of years, to a single task.
And that's kind of what my first source here, the one by Public Medievalist. Excuse me, I'm having trouble speaking today.
Common tongue is very difficult.
It is very difficult. Usually we speak more in arcane tongue, and that's more.
Oh God! I summoned a demon.
Be gone. Anyways, we are given these characters' abilities, and usually each character is divided into 6 scores: strength, intelligence, wisdom, and dexterity, constitution, charisma. And not only is that reductive, each character's ability score is then adjusted based upon their race. Like we said, dwarves are tough but gruff. They get a bonus to their constitutions and a minus to their charisma, etc. And that's kind of what we're talking about with the original sin, because it was based off of Tolkien, who first lumped all these races and their cultures, their abilities, their morality, all underneath this umbrella term of race. And so, with that, we are recognizing that there is inherently an issue, especially when we start talking about these races in general, because they were based off of Germanic culture, and so a lot of them are predominantly white. Those characters like elves, dwarves, and etc. don't have to necessarily be all white creatures, but when we think about them, what comes to our mind is like Lord of the Rings or Tolkien, and how those are predominantly white cultures.
It is off of Teutonic things.
Yes, and tying this back into my book by R.A. Salvatore Homeland, we are giving the backstory of Drizzt Do'Urden, who is a Drow elf. The one race that is of color is the Drow. They are dark-skinned. And my other article here that talks about, it's off of Polygon, it's D&D's Drizzt books were built upon racist tropes, and R.A. Salvatore wants to change that. And he even admits that he was not aware of them when he created them, because if you read, I was reading this interview about him when he created the Drow, because it just basically said they were an evil race, underground, worshipped a demon goddess, and that's how he based his understanding of the Drow.
Which I don't know about you, but spiders give me the heebie-jeebies.
Exactly. However, with that knowledge that he took, he then created and expanded upon it and created the world of the Underdark that we knew in these books. Now, he was happy to see that these fans are writing him saying that, oh, yes, I finally have a fantasy character that I can identify with and bring me in closer to this world. And he said, that's great, but that's problematic because I wrote Drizzt as being with a sense of otherness, like he was an outsider. So he stands out in these fantasy worlds because he is a dark elf. Most people see him and judge his character based upon his perceptions of who he is.
Speaking of judgments and perceptions, something that's I feel is a slippery slope. When playing this game, it is important that one must consider the mentalities of a middle-aged mindset.
True, because like you were mentioning, each of the races within there are very kind of xenophobic within themselves. They kind of keep
Yes.
themselves isolated, but so forth. But we're stepping outside of that and looking at this purely through today's lenses of people who can feel ostracized and want to be brought into this big phenomenon because D&D, you can argue, has grown within the past 5, 10 years
Agreed.
alone, you know. And so now that we are trying to be more inclusive to these people, we want to give them something. And how are we going to do that? First of all, R.A. Salvatore has recognized and apologizes because he was not intending for this to happen, but it needs to happen because he wants to do it. And so, what he has done, instead of like retconning and rewriting everything in this article, he talks about how he is actually saying that the Drow that we knew from the beginning, we only knew about this one race of Drow, and it was just one race. But it's only one sect of their race who have actually are the outcasts of the rest of Drow society. In fact, there's two more Drow societies that are of good nature, and we'll learn about them soon in his new book that he has mentioned. But um, but that is it, and that is essentially what we want to discuss with you guys today. First of all, thank you to my good friend here, J5 the Gray.
For all those clerics out there, may the light of Theron shine upon you.
And we got to go now because I'm going to drink him underneath the table. We had a little wager going, and I'm going to win it.